Hello friends, we are on the port side of the saloon today. So we are going to be mounting the fuse box, the fuse block, and we're using a slightly different bus bar that we're going to be placing inside this little locker here on the far wall. Unfortunately, the little camera is having a glitch today, so I'm having to use the X2, which is a little too tall to fit inside this locker. So I'm going to get things screwed down and then show you where we're at and kind of run you through what we're going to be doing. So here you can see the fuse block and the two bus bars are placed in. We also have some cable management blocks with zip ties hanging to kind of help route the cables as I start loading them in. To make things a little bit more tidy as we go. Next, we're going to work on getting power to the main fuse block. So when we were looking at the master cabin reading lights, I said we would take a deeper look at it when we got to the saloon. So now I'm going to show you in real time sort of what we do to get the reading lamps set up for installation. Okay, so the first step is you need to remove this ring. There's a set screw on the side here. So we just want to use the supplied Allen wrench. And we want to loosen it just enough so that the ring comes loose. Nice. Now we don't have to tighten it up quite as much. And keep in mind the wires have to go through here, so when we mount this, we're going to need to make sure we leave room for the wires to go through before we snug it down. Okay, so first we need to lengthen these wires. To do that, we're going to be using solder seal heat shrink butt connectors. This means the wires, they go end to end, and they butt together just like we used on the other projects. And then we're going to cover it with some heat shrink tubing. So I've got my box of 16 gauge wire. I like using 16 gauge for all this stuff, even though the amperage and length would require a much shorter. As you can see, this is a much thinner gauge. I would rather go oversize on my wiring than undersize. And this stuff at 100 feet is not that expensive. This is the silicone coated tinned copper wire with the high heat resistance. So this is the good stuff. Okay, now the big thing, I think we discussed this before, the big thing we want to be watching for when we use these butt connectors is we want to make sure the wire makes it all the way through to where the solder is connected. I find it helpful to kind of spin it as I place it on. Kind of seems to keep those strands from getting loose. And we are just barely up to the solder. I also find on these that one end is usually fluted a little bit more, so it tends to accept the larger wire better. So if I have trouble on one side, I try the other. There we go. Yep, this one, you can see the wire is right there at the solder. Now what we're going to want to do is connect this one through. And I like to use this sort of like a spear and make sure it goes inside the larger wires. That way we're getting a really good mechanical connection when that solder seals in. I want to make sure that there's exposed wire where the solder is, so don't push out the wire on the other side. Okay, now we're going to use our heat gun, and I'm going to try not to talk over it this time. But we're just going to basically heat up the center here, get it to shrink down, then heat up to seal the two edges, and then come back and melt that solder. Okay, and so what we're looking for, bring my light in at another angle, what we're looking for is for that solder to heat up and melt and sort of create a chemical bond between both of the wires. So they're now melted together in a mechanical sense. And then we're going to do the same thing for the black, which is the negative side. And I'm going to look for that fluted end. I think it's on this side. So I'm going to try and start on this side. Let's see if it does a little better for me. And sort of spinning it as we go. It's pretty tight. Let's see if it makes it to the solder. It looks like we're in. There you can see we are just at the 10 at the solder. Okay. We'll do the same sort of thing, and I'm going to try and spear it in to the other wire. Make sure it's got really good connectivity. They have a tendency to try to push out to one side or the other, so it's really try to aim it just for the center and sort of force it in. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. Okay. I think that one you can actually see even better. So you can see the solder really melted, and you can see the shininess there. So it's all very well sealed between the two wires. Now the previous light was fed into a channel that actually went into the paneling. We are not doing that with this light. Because I can't make that angle turn without removing this wood, and I don't really want to damage the finish at this time. So all of our lights are being hung through this channel, and then the wire is going to sit out and then go into the ceiling. It's a little less clean than the other installation, but it still looks fine when it's done. So the big thing here is I need to make sure I mount this ring so that those wires have access to that channel, but also have enough room to come out on the top side. So I want to make sure that the drill bit covers the main portion of the screw, but it does not. But it does leave the threads still able to bite. If you drill too large a hole, the threads won't bite and it won't get a good grip. And when you go sailing around and the boat starts moving, the light will come flying out. So we want to make sure we do enough that we're not going to split the wood, but also not too much because we want the screw to get a good bite. And I'm just pre-drilling the holes. We're not going to mount anything yet because I do need to measure out for the wire still. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is boats don't have hollow walls. They have bulkheads, and bulkheads are solid. They start on one side and they end on the other side. Both sides face out, so you don't have hollow channels like you do in a house, where you can hide your wiring or hide your pipes. So you can't just drill all the way through when you need to when you need to mount something. You want to make sure that you're going just deep enough to get it mounted, but not so deep that you're going through to the other side and making a hole that's unnecessary. This also means you have to be a little bit more strategic about where you place things, because you do have hollow spaces. Excuse me. All of the little compartments, for example, are a nice hollow space to hide some wires in, or to run a pipe through for a deck fill or a deck drain. The place where the roof of the boat, the deck, from inside it's the roof, from outside it's the floor, but we'll say the deck, and the hull of the boat come together, there's a gap there as well, that's made for running wires and small pipes. You also have the bottom underneath the floorboards. It's called the bilge. Is another good place to run wires if they are watertight, and also run water lines and drains and things like that. Okay, so I have already adjusted the length of my wire to run it down through the chase and into the locker. And I'm going to start by loosely attaching the base plate for the lamp. At this stage, very important that the wires are run through it. And they're going to come out the top, so I want to make sure that they are on the top side of the ring when I mount the screws. And remember, this is all just to get it started. And we're going to move the lamp up closer to its position and keep my Allen wrench key nearby. Okay. So get the USB plug there. Power switch is here. Let's turn that just a little bit more. And then we're going to use the set screw. Whew. I can get it to bite. Maybe I did have the right key. There we go. And we're just going to tighten it down until it is snug. We do not want this coming down while we're sailing. Almost over there. Okay, so the last little bit of cable management can't be done until we're ready to install the ceiling panel, because that's got to be some strain relief for when the ceiling panel is being fitted in. But it will basically mount up here and run along this chase into that corner. It is wired up now. So there's the nightlight mode. There's lamp. And there's off. Just like the others in the master cabin, it does dim. You just push and hold, and it goes stepless dimming, and then push and hold again, and it's stepless brighting. And of course, USB on the side. Pretty cool little thing. Okay, let's recap where we are today. So we have gotten the reading light installed with USB charger. We have got the fan fully wired up and connected in, and we have got our fuse block and our bus bars. The fuse block, of course, for everything. The bus bars are specifically for the puck lights. So I'm going to next work on running the repeated cables that will run all the way up from the bus bars up to the back of the chase there. Just like we did on the other side, we'll be using the spade plugs that are water resistant. They have little caps on them. And that way, if we need to pull the panels down, all we have to do is disconnect the spade plug. We don't have to unwire at the bus block, at the bus bar. And we'll also be getting the switch put in. So I'll probably do the switch next for today, and get that wired up to the bus bars to get supply lines running to the bus bars. The mics are just about out of power, so I'm going to have to put them on charge. So I may do a little bit off camera, but we will be back shortly. Okay, so I apologize for any of the audio issues. The microphones went dead, and I don't have spare, but I do need to continue on, so I can't wait for them to charge. So hopefully the sound's coming through okay. We are going to work on wiring up the switch next. So the switch comes with 4 wires. The first black and red are the incoming power, and then the next red and yellow will be the outgoing power that goes to the bus bars and powers the switches. To make the sorting of the wires a little cleaner, I'll be extending the yellow with yellow, and extending the red to the bus bar with white, which is also a positive standard for boat wiring. You can use white or red. The other thing that I'll be doing at the very last step is, after I put the ring terminal on, I will put black on the yellow and red on the white, just to make sure there's no confusion at the very last step. So let's get started. Okay, batteries are charged on the cameras and the microphones, so we are back in business with the RS as our primary, and back to using the microphones again, so I'm hoping the audio has gotten a lot better. So we are going to get the switch installed today. So we've got our main positive in and negative in going to go on those ring terminals, and then the power from the switch going to the bus bars will be on the white and black here, going to those. So we got to get the crimp connectors on, get it heat shrunk, and then get it installed. We're going to drill a hole right there. We're going to place some tape over it to keep the mahogany from getting tore up the ply outer layer, and make a nice clean cut. And then we're going to get things wired up onto the fuse block and the bus bars. So the switch is rated for a maximum voltage of 3 amps, so we're going to fuse it at 2 amps. That way the fuse is definitely protected. The lights use 0.3 amps per puck, so it would take 10 pucks to equal that 3 amps. We're only using 5, so we're going to get about 1.5. So we're well within what we need with the 2 amp fuse, and that way the circuit's protected definitively, and we don't have to worry about the switch wiring overheating and melting or having any issues. Okay, so these are, a little light in here, these are spade connectors. Let's see if we can get the camera to zoom in there. So you can see there's the female receiving plug, and there is the prong spade. So it goes just like that. It makes a nice tight connection that is water resistant. This is not waterproof because it's not going to heat shrink down over that. But the reason we're doing this is because we may need to pull the ceiling panels from time to time. So we're going to run all of the electrical to end in 5 mated pairs of these, both in red and black. And then each of the puck lights will have positive and negative on these. So that should we need to pull a panel down, we don't have to unwire the lights. We just open up the panel where the plugs are and unplug. So we'll be running all of the plugs to that section right there, so that all I have to do is drop that one panel, and then I can unplug the lights, and then we can pull down each section as we need to. We have our 2 for the long panel, 1 for the short panel, and then 2 for the side panels over there. Let's get them extended with the 16 gauge wire and get them ready for plugging in. Okay friends, that was a lot of work here in the saloon. Just a quick update on how it looks now. We have lighting on the starboard side. We have lighting on the port side. We've got fans on both sides, and we got reading lamps with USB chargers on both sides. So I would say that's a win. We got the stepless dimming. Which I think is a really cool feature. And then of course they go soft off. Same on the other side. Whew. There's a big table. So we can dim. Make them bright again. And soft off. We got our wonderful reading lamp with a USB charger. I'd say this project's a success. The very low voltage lights, very low voltage fans, very low voltage reading lamps. Impact should be minimal, but our next project will address if there is any impact. Additionally, we've also now got a fan installed right above the fridge, pointing into the galley. So I'd say the saloon is pretty well set up. We've got the master cabin pretty well set up with lighting. We need to make a few changes in the galley, in the head, which is the bathroom, and then in the pilot house down the road. Pilot house doesn't need to be done right away. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed this project. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can get notifications for our next videos. Next project will be making some drastic changes to the chemistry on the boat. Stick around and we'll see more. Bye guys.